He stood in front of the class wearing the same torn hoodie for the third day in a row. His voice shook as he said just 11 words. "I want to be a scientist so I can help people." The room laughed, but the loudest laugh came from the teacher. She smirked and said, "Maybe aim for something realistic." What she didn't know? The boy she just humiliated was the son of one of the most powerful scientists in the country. And when he walked through the school doors later that week, everything changed. This is one story you won't forget. So if you believe dreams matter more than appearances, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It started on a chilly Monday morning, the kind where the sky hangs gray like a forgotten promise, and even the wind feels like it's carrying disappointment. Seventh grade homeroom at Ridgeview Middle School had just begun. As students slouched into their seats, trading half-hearted greetings and pulling out binders, no one paid much attention to the boy who slipped quietly into the back of the room. His name was Elijah. Elijah wore the same hoodie every day, a faded, oversized maroon thing with a torn pocket and sleeves too long for his arms. His shoes were scuffed, his jeans frayed at the edges. He rarely spoke unless called on. Most kids didn't know much about him, just that he never had lunch money, avoided eye contact, and sometimes showed up with his little sister in tow when school started, walking her to kindergarten before heading to class himself. He kept his head down, his voice low, and his presence small. But today, something changed. Ms. Harrow, the science teacher, strutted into the room wearing her usual sharp heels and sarcastic smirk. She was one of those teachers who seemed to think teaching was beneath her, always talking down to kids, always reminding them how ungrateful they were. That morning, she'd handed out an assignment that felt like a joke to most students. Write down your biggest dream in life and present it to the class. Most rolled their eyes. Some scribbled nonsense. A few took it seriously. But when it was Elijah's turn, the room quieted in that weird, anticipatory way that only happens when something awkward is about to unfold. Miss Harrow looked up from her desk, adjusted her glasses, and said, "Elijah James, you're up." Elijah hesitated. He clutched his notebook with both hands like it might fly away. Slowly, he rose from his seat and made his way to the front of the room. The chuckles started before he even opened his mouth. He stood there, still and soft-spoken, and read, "My dream is to become a scientist. I want to study space and develop new technology to help people with disabilities, so no one feels like they're less than others." There was silence for a beat. Then a voice from the back muttered, "You mean like Iron Man?" A few kids laughed, but it was Ms. Harrow who let out a loud, audible chuckle that bounced off the walls like a slap. "That's ambitious," she said, drawing out the last word like a punishment. "Especially coming from someone who doesn't even bring a pencil to class half the time. Let's try aiming for something more realistic, shall we?" The air went cold. Elijah just stood there, frozen, eyes wide, throat tight. His fingers gripped the notebook so hard the edges began to tear. One of the students near the front, a girl named Layla, looked up from her desk, frowning. "That's not fair," she said under her breath. But Ms. Harrow didn't hear her. She was already calling on the next student. Elijah walked back to his desk, slower this time, the heat of 100 invisible eyes pressing down on his back. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. But that day, something inside him shifted. What no one in that classroom knew, what even Ms. Harrow hadn't bothered to find out. was that Elijah's life was a quiet storm of survival. He and his little sister, Maya, had been bouncing between shelters for months. Their mother was gone, had walked out one night and never came back. Their father? Well, most people assumed he was just some deadbeat, some absent name scribbled on a birth certificate. But that assumption couldn't have been more wrong. That afternoon, as the bell rang and students spilled into the hallways, Elijah was called to the front office. A man was there waiting for him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark suit, serious eyes. His presence filled the space like thunder rolling in the distance. "Elijah," the man said with a warm smile, "I'm here to take you and your sister home." Ms. Porter, the school secretary, looked confused. "And you are?" He handed her a card. Her eyes scanned it, widened, and then she stood up straighter. "Dr. Elijah Bennett?" she read aloud, stunned. "The aerospace engineer?" Elijah nodded quietly. "That's my dad." The secretary's jaw dropped slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, of course. Let me call down Maya from her class." Within minutes, Maya was there too, her eyes lighting up as she spotted the man. She ran into his arms, squealing, "Daddy!" loud enough to echo. The moment was intimate, whole, like puzzle pieces snapping back together after being lost under the couch for years. They left together, hand in hand, without saying a word to anyone else. The next day, the school buzzed with whispers. Elijah had arrived in a sleek black car with tinted windows. A driver opened the door for him and Maya. He wore a crisp new hoodie, clean sneakers, and a quiet smile. He didn't look smug. He didn't brag. But people noticed. Then things got weirder. That afternoon, Dr. Elijah Bennett showed up again, this time with a clipboard and an assistant. He walked into the main office, introduced himself to Principal Harmon, and requested a meeting with the school's science department. Ms. Harrow, sipping her overpriced coffee, didn't recognize him at first when he walked into the classroom with the principal in tow. "Ms. Harrow," Principal Harmon said, clearing his throat. "This is Dr. Bennett, NASA consultant and AI researcher. He'll be volunteering with our science classes once a week, starting with yours." She blinked. I'm sorry. What?" Dr. Bennett extended a hand. "We've never met formally, but I believe you've taught my son, Elijah." The room went silent. Her face went pale, mouth dry. For a split second, she looked at Elijah in the back corner of the room, who looked right back at her, expression calm, but eyes burning with something deep and ancient. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Bennett's sessions with the class transformed everything. He brought in interactive lessons, futuristic gadgets, even 3D models of space tech. Students were suddenly engaged. Kids who had never cared about science were asking questions, staying after class, dreaming again. And Elijah? He became the quiet leader of it all. He helped design a robotics project that won the school its first regional science fair trophy in over a decade. His name was printed in the local paper. Scholarships started trickling in. Teachers who once overlooked him now smiled and waved in the hall. But not Ms. Harrow. She was different, distant, and eventually gone. Word spread that she'd requested a transfer. Rumors said the district had received complaints from several parents, especially after the way she'd spoken to Elijah came to light. Dr. Bennett never raised his voice, never sought revenge. He just did what good fathers do. He showed up. Proved people wrong by building, not breaking. Months later, at the school's end-of-year assembly, Elijah stood on stage again. This time, not as the invisible kid, but as the recipient of the district's Young Innovator Award. When the crowd rose for a standing ovation, Elijah scanned the room. He found Layla in the front row and nodded, found Maya clapping wildly with Principal Harmon. And finally, he found his father, arms folded, smiling proud. Not because of the trophy, but because Elijah had never stopped dreaming, not even when the world told him not to. And when he took the mic to speak, his voice didn't tremble. It rang clear, confident. He said, "Thank you for believing in me, especially when some didn't. I hope we all learn to treat people not by how they look or what they have, but by what they dream of becoming. Because dreams aren't about what we wear, they're about who we are." The gym erupted in applause. Outside, the clouds had cleared, the sky bright and open, and somewhere in the back of that room, every kid who once laughed at Elijah was quiet. Because they knew. They had witnessed something real, something powerful. A quiet boy who rose, not through rage or revenge, but through purpose. And a father who proved that even when the world underestimates you, your worth is never defined by others. It's revealed by your belief in yourself. Elijah never yelled, never fought back. He didn't need to. His brilliance spoke for him. And the teacher who mocked him? She was gone, but the lesson she left behind stayed with everyone. Never underestimate someone because of their clothes, their silence, or where they sleep at night. Because the kid you're laughing at today might be the genius who changes the world tomorrow. This wasn't just a story about a student and a teacher. It was a reminder. Your dreams are valid, no matter where you come from. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories, only on Real Talk Stories.